Hello, my name is Jessica. Thank you for joining me. So in our practice today, we're going to work on our hamstrings, and our hamstrings are a muscle group that people love to hate. Specifically, our hamstrings, many people's hamstrings tend to get really tight, and they get tight from chronic sitting, they get tight from misuse or just lack of use. And so we're going to work today to try to open them up, but we're going to do it gently. So we'll start with some soft tissue work. And then from there, we'll move into a few basic standing poses that are primarily aimed at targeting the hamstrings. So to that end, please make sure that you've got 2 blocks, a blanket, some type of ball. So it could be a racket ball, a tennis ball. These are therapy balls. Any type of ball would be great for that. And then you might want a wall space if balance tends to be an issue, and we'll need it a little bit later when we work towards L-Dog anyways. If you don't have a wall, you can also use a chair. Cool. So to that end, we're going to go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and stand up. And the first thing I'd like you to do is just stand tall with your feet hip distance apart. And you'll start by noticing what it feels like to stack your hips over your knees over your ankles. So we've got the legs going down, and then feel what it feels like to stack the head over the shoulders over the hips, and then finding that length. So the pelvis is descending, but the crown is lifting up. And then you'll start to observe what it feels like to just lower the arms, let the palms radiate forward, and the collarbones widen. Maybe a gaze lifts about an inch, and maybe a smile forms across your face. And you'll just take 3 breaths here, ascertaining where you are at this moment. Sometimes an idea of hamstrings, a part of us that feels tight or overworked or whatever, can start to evoke things. So just notice what your breath is doing here and now. And then you'll gradually start to extend and elongate your breath. Now to just check in, you'll take 3 breath cycles here. Maybe it's an audible exhale, maybe it's an audible inhale. We're just letting the breath deepen. In order for the musculature of the body to open, it really helps if we're breathing. So throughout all of this, your main task is to breathe. So 1 more breath cycle here. Nice work. And then you'll gently bring your hands to the backs of your legs, touching your buttocks, your hamstrings. Bend your knees just a little bit and fold forward halfway and fold forward all the way, and let the arms or hands continue to slide down. And you're just noticing what your hamstring capabilities are at this moment. Noticing if the knees need to be bent, if the fingers even touch the floor, if the head feels tight, if the low back feels tight, if your legs are already screaming at you. And then you'll just slowly slide the hands back up the legs, let the back of the heart lift, come up through a flat back, and come up to stand. Okay, so that was our initial checkpoint. We'll come back to that at various points, and I want you to just see if and or how things have changed. And if they have, great. If they haven't, great. It doesn't matter. It matters that you're breathing and paying attention to you. So to that end, let's start with our first little, therapy. We can't really call it a therapy, but our first intervention. So you'll start with one of your balls, or your only ball, and then you're going to step your left foot on top of your ball. And I want you to spread wide through your toes and just plant the ball of your foot on your actual physical ball. And you're going to see if you can reach your toes forward and down towards the floor. And once you do that, you might feel a little bit of sensation, where you can be pressure coming underneath the sole of the foot where the ball is making contact, or you might even feel it along the top of your skin, top of the foot. And you're just going to pause, and you're going to notice if you're breathing. And as best as possible, I'm trying to have even weight through both of my legs. Then we're going to pause, and you're going to shift the ball back or slide your foot forward, whatever you want to think about. And now the ball is more in the middle of the foot. And as best as you can, we're trying to have the right and the left sides drop towards the floor evenly, the front and the back of the foot drop towards the floor evenly. And again, notice what the sensation is. Do you feel it on the top of the foot? Do you feel it on the bottom of the foot? Are you breathing? Okay. Release that a little bit and slide the ball back a little bit. So now it's right in front of your heel. And again, this is one of those fun ones where you're going to still try to see if you can drop the heel and the toes, the right and the left side of your foot to floor. And now for me personally, I realize that my weight has come forward just a little bit as my left knee bends, and you might be doing that too. And that's okay. And then we're going to take a few passes, just rolling forward and back. You might notice that you go to the inside, straight down the middle, a little bit to the outside, but you're finding fun little spots that feel good to you. I'm just giving it a little bit of pressure. And then we'll stop, and you'll have the ball directly underneath your heel, and you just, I don't know, shimmy that heel around a little bit, almost like you're trying to put out an imaginary cigarette, but your toe doesn't move and your heel doesn't move very much either. Cool. And then you'll just take a few ankle circles there, see how that feels, and plant the foot. And then just observe. You can look down at your feet. Do they look like they're different colors? Does one foot have more traction, more spaciousness, more contact with the floor than the other? Does one leg feel a little bit heavier or more connected than the other? And does the back of the leg feel different? Like, you're just starting to notice these things. No worries just yet. And then we'll go ahead and switch sides. So now your right foot will come onto the ball. It's just the ball of your foot. Your toes reach forward and down. And you're just pausing and breathing, and ideally trying to keep the same amount of weight going through the legs. And then we'll come out of that and move the ball down. So now it's more in the middle of your foot. And again, the toes try to reach down, the heel try to reach down, the right and the left sides of your foot try to reach down. And for me, I notice it's very different on this foot than it was on this foot. And we're trying not to judge and just being attentive and aware and breathing. And then you'll slide that ball back a little bit more. And now it's like right in front of your heel, that calcaneus bone. And again, trying to keep it even front to back, right to left. And then noticing this foot chooses not to do that today, or maybe it can't, and that's okay. And then you'll just take a few passes rolling forward and back, and you'll notice what it feels like on the side. Might feel better to go to the medial edge, that's the inside edge, the lateral edge, that's the outside edge. Maybe you're going straight down the middle. Maybe you want to spend some more time around the ball of the foot or closer to the heel, but you're just choosing what feels best to you. And then we'll stop with the ball underneath our heel. And again, little jiggles, shakes of the heel. And you're noticing what that feels like on this side. And then you'll gently release that. A few little ankle circles, noticing what the foot does. Okay, and then you'll plant the foot. And then just as we are here, hands come to the back of your butt, you'll start to fold forward, slight bend in your knees, and come all the way down, and just notice if there's any difference now. So the hands get a little closer, the legs feel a little more open. Does one leg feel different than the other? And then we'll slide the hands back up, back of the heart lifts. Inhale, come all the way back up. Awesome. From here, go ahead and bend the knees and pop a squat. And this one, we're going to take the ball and bring it underneath your calf. So you might want to lift your leg up, plant that ball. Oh, wow, that's fun. In the middle of your calf. And so it's literally in the middle, it's in line with my knees, and we're just going to sit here for a little bit. And so the closer that you close, so I'm starting with your right leg, the closer that it is towards my pelvis, the more pressure that's going to be at the back of my knee, back of my calf. So you mitigate that for you. If you found your fun spot and you're like, yep, Jessica, that's where I'm staying, that's where you stay. You can also bring your hands behind your back and just push down lightly, small amount of movement to draw the knee, hip forward on that side. And you really want to make sure you're breathing. The body can only open when you're breathing. So let's take a few breaths here. One more. Awesome sauce. Okay, so gently release that. You'll slide the ball now so it's more on the medial side of the back of the leg. Now, this is always a fun one. Sometimes it's hard to get the ball there, so you're gonna have to figure out how to make that happen for you. And then this time, you're gonna do the same thing. You might just stay completely in stillness, trying to close that joint as much as your body will allow. And then you might stay there. You might go forward and back a little bit. And this might be a completely different sensation than when you have the ball in the middle of your leg. You're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. It's very funny how we often judge certain parts of our body. You know, this part's open, this part's tight, and then it's not necessarily that black or white. Our body is tensegrity units. Everything works together. So we want to pay attention to how everything is working together so that things that are overworked can take a break and things that are underworking can have the opportunity to step up. Okay, go ahead and release that. Take the ball again, and now it's going to come to a more of a lateral edge, so the outer edge. And it really, if you're watching this, it really is bulging out on the side. And so we're trying to capture it, the ball in between your leg. And you might just stay there. You might bring your hands back behind you and start to press your pelvis, your knee forward as you allow the muscles to soften around the ball to create space. And then we find if we're breathing or not. We see if we can come back to that. Awesome sauce. So then you'll gently release that. Go ahead and extend your right leg long. Go ahead and extend your left leg long. And now here in Dandasana, this is also a hamstring pose. Just notice if you notice anything different. Does one leg feel closer to the floor than the other? Does it feel like there's more contact? Does it feel like there's more space, more length? Any of the above is great. And if you're not noticing that too, that's okay too. Just make sure you're breathing. Okay, we'll go ahead and try the other side. So let's go ahead and draw the ball directly in the middle of your left calf. Wow, that's really fun. And it's as close to your knee pit as possible. And then hands might just come back behind you. It sort of feels almost like a hamstring curl, like I'm curling my left foot towards my butt. Not super active, like I would say it's 1% if anything. But there's that activation of like the heel coming back, and it's a fun sensation in the back of the leg. And you're just noticing if you were breathing, and if you're not, go ahead and deepen your breath. Body cannot open if we're not breathing. One more breath. Nice work. Okay, and then you'll go ahead and switch that ball. So now it's more on the inside edge, the medial edge, and it might take some finagling in order to be able to get that ball to stay in your leg region. And you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe and then maybe come forward a little bit. But we're really, well, that's fun. We're really paying attention to this notion of, Trina Altman talks about bodies needing to do a certain level of work before they can clock out, before they can go on vacation. So we're trying to get our body to do some work so that we can go on vacation, but we're also trying to give the ones that have been worked through bees the whole time some time to relax and time to go on vacation. So for some of you, this might be work, and some of you, this might be vacation. So wherever you're at, that's okay. Just make sure you're breathing. It's probably a good analogy. Gotta breathe while you're working. You're definitely probably hopefully breathing while you're taking vacation. Okay, let's go ahead and release that. And then draw the ball to the outer edge, to the lateral edge, and finagle it as you need to. Whoa, in order to pinch that ball between your legs. So I did this practice like 2 days ago. I'm doing it again today. It's very crazy how much your hamstrings can change on a day-to-day basis. And then you're just pausing and you're breathing, and you're pausing and you're breathing. Awesome sauce. Okay, let's go ahead and release that. Send your left leg forward, right leg forward, and you're just going to see if anything feels different. Do both legs feel like they're now more even? Does it feel like your spine is sitting up a little bit more tall? Great. And then we'll just stand up once again and try Uttanasana to see how that's going. So that'll be our check-in pose every now and again. So we're going to do it again. Feet hip distance apart, hands at the backs of the legs, hinge at the hips, and just start to fold forward. And as you come forward this time, observe where the weight is in the feet. So notice where you feel more stretch happen. Notice if you feel closer to your shins or your head closer to the floor, and either is okay, none of it's okay, or all of it's okay. You're just seeing what you see. And very gently, hands slide up the back of the hips, come all the way back up to stand. Awesome sauce. Sit your pelvis down on the floor again. And this time we're going to find everyone's favorite shape for outer hips. Figure 4, aka pigeon pose or Supinandrasana. But before we do that, we'll start with our left leg, and you're going to find that greater trochanter. It's the bony protrusion on the outside edge of your left hip. And then you're going to find your sit bone, which is your sit bone. And you're going to put the ball in between that space. And you're gonna roll your butt onto that ball. So you might need to bend the right leg, and you might just stay there and be like, yep, just up. That's great. There's a lot of sensation as I'm pressing down into the ball. You might increase the sensation by lowering down onto your forearm. By all means, that's going to create quite a bit of stuff happening underneath your left hip. You might say, yeah, I'm still not feeling that. You might cross that top ankle on top. And you're going to pause and you're going to breathe. And, as you're here, well, you might stay completely still. You might start to rock and roll just a little bit front to back or right to left. And you're just allowing the body to soften around the ball. So one of the funny things is when we think that we're tight somewhere, we try to force ourselves open, but the body often does the opposite. It constricts and contracts, and it's like, no way, Jose, I don't want to go. So we're seeing if we can allow us to be right where we are, sensation, deepening the breath, noticing any of the stuff, and still inviting the possibility of things to open. Okay, gently slide off the ball. Go ahead and extend your left leg long, right leg long, and just observe now, how does Dandasana feel? Does it feel like one of your butt cheeks is a little bit closer to the floor? Does it feel like you have space around that hip? Does it feel like the legs are a little bit more easily touching the floor or differently touching the floor? There's no right, there's no wrong, it's just observation. Okay, and then we'll try it on the other side. So you want to make sure you can find your greater trochanter. That's that big bony protrusion. And then find your sit bone. And you're going to roll your butt onto that spot or into that space. Whoa. And you might just stay there. That right leg might stay straight. You might bend the right leg. You might lower down onto that forearm, as I've already done. You might stay there and be happy as a clam. You might cross, whoa, fun, joy. That right ankle on top of your left knee. And then you'll see if you're breathing. And once you get there, you might stay completely still. You might rock a little forward and back. You might go right to left. But again, you're trying to soften. You're trying to allow things to open instead of forcing things to open. One more breath cycle here. Great. And then gently you release that. You'll come up to sit. You'll extend both legs long. Remove any flesh from underneath your sit bones and just notice if anything feels any different. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and make our way up to stand and have a standing seat. Standing seat. Well, not yet. And then your feet are hip distance apart. Hands come to the backs of your hamstrings, butts fold forward. Maybe knees are still slightly bent. Chin tucks in towards your chest, and you're just observing how your hamstrings are going now. And it's at this moment that I should say that I have pretty open hamstrings. So you might have noticed that externally not much may have changed in the way that my shape looks, but internally it feels like quite a bit has changed. And you might be having a similar or different experience. You might have noticed that lots of things changed externally, or lots of things changed internally. Doesn't matter either way. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our two blocks, and depending upon the length of your foot, you might stack them two in a row. And they might go two in a row widthwise, they might go two in a row lengthwise. It really depends upon how long your feet are. And then if you're near a wall or you got your chair, you're going to go ahead and step up to have both feet on your blocks. Great. From here, unless they're the other way, and then you will not be doing that probably, you're going to go ahead and just send your left foot back, and you're trying to drop your left heel towards the floor. And the wall and or a chair will be really helpful here. You can also just have your hands on your hips if balance is not an issue. And you're really just dropping that heel down towards the floor and feeling where that stretches. It might be on the inner edge of your calf, it might be on the outer edge of your calf. Notice what happens if you make sure your heel is going straight down. Does that change your sensation? And then you'll gently come up and we'll switch sides. So go ahead and send your right foot back. All the foot stays on the block as best as possible. Toes, or rather heel, reaching down towards the floor. And then you're pausing and you're breathing. Nice work. And then gently go ahead and step back up. Release both feet onto the floor. Remove your blocks. So while you're down there, you might forward fold and see how that feels now. And then we'll gently come back up, come to stand. Great. From here, let's go ahead and turn to face the side of your mat. Separate your feet about 3 feet apart. Turn your heels in, your toes out, and then we're gonna pop a squat and rest our hands on our thighs. Now what we're doing here is I want you to check in and look at your knees, make sure they're centered over the second and third toes. The hands can press out on the inner thighs and you might stay completely still. You might shift your weight right to left. You might also notice that it feels nice on the spine to lock out your elbows. So my elbows are not hyperextended, but they're really straight. I'm not having to use too much effort to hold them there. And what that does is it just allows the spine, the pelvis to descend, and it creates a little bit of length through my vertebra. It feels really nice. Okay, and then you'll come to a still neutral spot in between. Lift all 10 toes, press down into the big toe mound, the pinky toe mound, the inner heel, the outer heel. Lower both toes down, start to squeeze your outer glutes in, and then see if you can lift a heart. See if you can lift the hands and sit low for malasana, well, not malasana, horse stance. And you'll just sit here, squeezing the outer hips in, pushing down through the big toes, lifting up through the heart. And then we'll take some little bounces for 3. Little bounces for 2. Little bounces for 1. Sit as low as you can. Hold for 3. Hold for 2. Squeeze the glutes for 1. Next inhale, push through the feet. Stand up. Go ahead and turn the feet in and then step or hop your feet together. So again, that vacation analogy, got to get things to work before we can take a little vacation. Okay, before we do that, make sure you've got a wall or your chair, and it'll be easily accessible. So you're going to bring yourself to your wall or your chair. Put your hands on the wall. Hands are about, waist height. And then you're going to start to step your feet back until you create an L shape. So this is halfway in between that forward fold, but it looks very much like Dandasana, that shape we started with before. Now bend your knees quite a bit and walk your feet so your feet are hip distance apart. Once you've got that, push your hands into the wall. Lift up through your inner armpits, draw your front ribs back and see if you can send your tailbone back. Ears in line with your arms, and you'll just take 3 breaths here. You might stay continuing to draw front ribs back as tailbone lifts, pubic bone sends back, little inner armpits lift. And then at the end of your next exhalation, you'll start to bend the knees even more. Slowly walk the feet forward, come back up to stand. Awesome sauce. Okay, let's go ahead and come back to the center of your space. Separate your feet again about 3 feet apart. Now, this is one of those opportune moments that if you already know that hamstrings tend to be tight, bring a block to the back and a block to the front of your space. It will just help. You won't need them immediately, but they'll help in the future. Take your left toes, turn your left toes to the right, turn your right toes to the right. And then you'll keep your hands on your hips for a moment. I want you to push out through both legs. So the left leg is pushing down to the left foot, the right hip is pushing down to the right foot. And then it's almost like a marionette is pulling your knees apart. So they're pulling your right knee forward, they're pulling your left inner knee back, and you start to descend towards warrior 2. And so with our hands still here on our pelvis, I want you to notice where you can send perhaps the inner left heel back just a little bit more, where you can allow that top left thigh to still integrate in towards the pelvis and towards the abdomen. And then maybe bring your right hand to the outside edge of your right thigh. Push the right thigh out, push the right hand in, and then notice if that allows you to descend a little bit more. You might then observe a sensation happening on the inside edge of your left leg. And we'll keep that. So hug your feet in towards each other. Extend out through both arms for Virabhadrasana 2, warrior 2. And then externally rotate the top of the arms. So your palms face up. Keep that, but just turn your palms to face down. Nice job. You'll take 1 more breath here, pushing the knife edge of back foot, front foot, hugging points together. And next in breath, go ahead and straighten the front leg. Hands come back to your hips. Turn the feet back to parallel and take a moment to pause and breathe. And you're just gonna say, hello legs, how are you doing? Thank you for working. Let's go to the other side. So turn your right toes to the left, turn your left toes to the left. First things first, push down through the leg, lift up through the spine, drop down through the tail. And then from there, a little marionette pulls your left knee towards your left foot, little marionette pulls your right inner knee towards your right foot. And then you'll notice what's happening here. Does that Right hip need to come forward, but can you still integrate it in? So the legs and the hips are pulling in towards each other. The left hand comes to the outer left thigh. Push left hand into thigh, left thigh into hand. And notice that that allows you to descend the left knee forward a little bit more. From there, let's see if we can lift up through the spine. Hands come back to hips. Rotate just your shoulders. So now they're more parallel to the short edges of your mat. Arms extend out. Externally rotate the whole upper arm. So it's like you're a bird. Notice that the shoulder blades widen. Keep that, but reach out through the middle fingers to turn the palm down. Gaze comes over left arm. Continue to push out through both feet and hug in through both feet. And then notice if you can even out the reach from the front hand and the back hand. Take one more breath cycle here. Nice work. Go ahead and push down through the front leg, straighten the leg, hands to hips, turn both feet in parallel to the short edge of your mat. Now pause here, make sure the pinky toe edge of your foot is really in line with the outer edge of your mat. And since this is for tight hip hamstring people, you'll probably have your feet a lot longer, wider apart. If you're pretty mobile, walk your feet in. The closer they are, the more that helps. Okay, so I'm gonna walk mine in, but if you're more on the tighter side, you keep your feet wide. Hands will come to your hips, draw your shoulders up, draw your shoulder blades onto your back, and lift your heart. Drop your tail, and on your next exhale, start to fold forward halfway. So we're back to that L-dog shape thing. Pause here, bend your knees a little bit. Lower one hand to the floor, lower the other hand to the floor. From here, you might start to walk your hands forward. You might start to send your inner thighs back, push down to the feet, and lower your ears in line with your arms. And then notice the quality and the state of your breath. Can you breathe deeply? Can you breathe evenly and easily? Take one more breath cycle here. How do your hamstrings feel in a slightly wider position? Awesome sauce. Gently start to walk the hands back so they're underneath your shoulders. Once the hands are under your shoulders, bend your knees like you're a little football player. So your pubic bone goes back, your sternum goes forward, your crown goes forward, as though you're going to hike the ball. Your spine is as long as it can be. From there, bend the knees a little bit more. Draw one hand to one hip, the other hand to the other hip. Back with the heart and lips, come up to stand. Nice job. Okay, now we're going to add on. So your feet might stay this distance. They might need to narrow, they might need to widen. I personally need to widen mine a little bit, but you might choose to narrow yours a little bit. We're going to turn our left toes into the right. We're going to turn our right toes out to the right. And again, just as we did before, pushing down through both legs, reaching up through the crown, broadening through the collarbones. Suck all that energy in towards your navel, your midline, and then reach the arms out. Now, from here, turn the whole arm again, little flowering pose, and then turn the palms down. Now you're going to reach out through your right hand so far that the right hand has no choice but to come down. It might come down to that block, it might come down to your ankle, your shin, or it might come down to the floor. The left hand will come to your hip. Now let's keep our gaze on the bottom foot, so the front right foot for a moment. Now, you're probably noticing that you don't have this issue, meaning you're hyperextending the right leg. But if you do, the right shin goes forward, push down from the right hip bone to the right big toe, and then press from the left outer hip down to the left pinky toe. Then lengthen your left side body as much as you can and rotate your rib cage towards the left. You might then extend your arm up and overhead. Awesome. If you're there hanging out, you stay there. Some of you might be like, yeah, Jessica, I've got tight hamstrings. That's not going to happen at all. Your hand might be all the way up here, and that's okay too. And then if your hand is up there, you might just extend the arm up. And then you're noticing that this probably creates more stretch up here. If you'd like a little bit more hamstring stretch, you'll just simply start to walk your hand down your front shin, keeping that leg as straight as it can be until you feel a slight, gentle tug activation happening in the back of your right leg. Awesome sauce. Next in breath, you'll go ahead and inhale, come up, reach back through the left arm, lift up through the right, bring both hands to your hips, turn your right toes in and pause. And you'll just breathe and you'll notice what you notice. So a lot of times when things are hard for us, we hold our breath. And so if it was hard for you, were you holding your breath? And if so, no worries. You notice that. Let's come back and breathe right now. Okay, let's try the other side. So let's turn our right toes to the left, our left toes to the left. And same thing as we started with. So you're pushing out through both feet, making yourself almost like an Egyptian, very regal, very big breath. Then externally rotate from the top of the arms. So it's a very giving gesture, but turn the palms to face down. Push down through both feet, hug in through both legs. And then next in breath, reach forward through that left arm so much that it has no choice but to come down. And it might touch your left ankle, the shin, the floor, that block that's over there. It might be even higher up on your thigh. And you're just choosing where is best for you. Now that right hand probably came to the right hip for you. And if so, it might stay there. You might reach it back. And then you might reach it up towards the sky, creating triangle with the Trikonasana standard. Or you might extend it up and over your head, which is just a variation of it. And one just gives you a different sensation. With the arm along your ear, it's stretching more of your side body than it is when the arm is vertical. But we're not focused so much on that today as much as we are on what's happening in your happy hamstrings. So you're pausing and you're breathing. You're seeing if your shoulder, your right shoulder can stay stacked on your left, your heart can remain open as best as possible. And if you're like, yeah, Jessica, I'm up here, you're good. You're just breathing. You're feeling what's happening in the backs of your legs. Nice job. Next in breath, reach back through the right arm. Come up with the left. Turn both legs parallel. Hands come towards your hips. And then you can either step or hop your feet together. And then you'll take a moment to pause and you'll take a moment to breathe. And the hands might just radiate forward just as they did at the very beginning. Collarbones broaden, gaze lifts, maybe a smile appears on your face. Working on things that may not be our strength does not necessarily have to be hard or unpleasant. It's really the attitude that we bring to it. And it's very funny that a lot of emotions, subconscious ones particularly, are stored in the body in ways that we don't even notice until we start to tap into those parts of the body. Okay, so that being done, let's go ahead and come back. We're almost done, no worries. I want you to stand to face the top of your space. And you're going to separate your knees probably outer mat distance apart. And depending upon your mobility, please remove your blocks if you still got them on your mat. Depending upon your mobility in terms of length of spine, you might need to step towards the back of your mat more. Okay, then you're going to bend your knees and your hands are going to come to the outer edges of your legs. So your thumbs are pointing in, your fingertips are fanning out. It's almost like you're, I'm tired type of stance. I ran a lot, I'm tired. So you're like in that position. Now staying in this position, I want you to see if you can traction out the spine as best as you can. So then that sends your pubic bone back and your tailbone dips just a bit. Great, keep that. Cross the hands so now they're on the inner edges of your thighs. Press your hands into your knees, thighs into your hands, and see if you can widen that pubic bone back even more. Crown goes forward. You're going to keep widening out through the inner thighs, pubic bone goes back, and then lower one hand to the floor, the other hand to the floor, and start to crawl yourself towards a downward facing dog. And you're going to come into downward facing dog with your knees staying pre-bent, your feet staying exactly as they are, and then come out to that stance that the inner armpits can continue to lift. Keep lifting through the inner armpits, keep pulling the front ribs back, but widening through the inner thighs and the tailbone up. And some of you might need to hug those outer hips in to make sure the sacrum stays balanced. And you pause and you breathe. Our ears in line with armpits. And then gently, you'll lower the knees towards the mat. You'll go ahead and sit up on top of your shins, and you'll just take a moment to pause. You'll take a moment to breathe, and you'll notice how things are going. All right, then swim your legs around in front of you, back to Dandasana, once again, staff pose. And you're going to see how your hamstrings are doing now. Now, because we're going to actually stay here for a moment, that blanket would be very helpful at this point. If you're like, Jessica, that's great, I'm still like this. If that's the case, you might elevate your pelvis on a blanket. You might still find that your low back is rounded or your knees are super bent. And if that's the case, add another blanket, maybe even sit on your block. But we're just going to sit here for a moment and see how our hamstrings are working. And as best as you can, toes are pulling up towards your knees. If the legs are straight, kneecaps are pulling up. If the knees are bent, you're seeing if you can still pull the knees or the toes up to the knees, but find that arch that we just had in the low back so you can sit super tall and proud and lengthen up through the spine. And you might stay happily as a clam right here and breathe. Some of you might start to walk your heart forward, and you might start to melt your chest towards your thighs. And if your hamstrings are pretty on the tight side for today, your knees might stay super bent, and you might stay here, just letting your head drape between your legs and say, happy days, this feels good. If your hamstrings are more on the open side, I encourage you to walk back out of the shape. Go ahead and straighten your legs along first. And then again, finding the top of the sacrum coming forward. It feels like your pubic bone is going back. And you'll start to walk yourself forward. And we're coming into Paschimottanasana, whether the legs are bent or whether the knees are straight. If the legs are straight, you're pushing down into your heels, you're pushing down into the calves, you're pushing down into the backs of the hamstrings, and all that happens by pulling up on the kneecaps on the front of the legs, letting the head drop. And then you can breathe here wherever you feel sensation. It might be in the low back around QL, space between the ribs and the hips. You might feel it on the backs of the hamstrings. You might even feel it around the upper thoracic spine, depending upon how you hold tension and wear. We've got one more breath cycle here. And then at the end of your next exhalation, the hands will start to walk back towards the pelvis. You'll start to push the hands into the floor to roll the spine up to sit. Once you're vertical, you'll see if you can pause for a moment, broadening the collarbone, softening the shoulders away from the ears, lifting the sternum and just taking a deep breath. Awesome sauce. Great. Okay, from here, you're going to make your way onto your back. Onto your back. Ooh. And when you get onto your back, please make sure one of your blocks is easily accessible to you. And then you're going to slide that block in between your inner upper thighs, whatever setting feels best to you. Your hands will then extend back down to the floor alongside your hips. And you might stay there with the arms straight. You might bend your elbows. In either case, you're going to walk your shoulder blades underneath you, push down into your head, push down into your feet, push down into whatever part of the arm is touching the floor, and lift your hips high. Hug into that block. Press into your big toes and see if you can lengthen tailbone towards your knees. And then make sure that the sternum is lifting towards the chin is drawing towards the sternum without over compressing the cervical spine. That means, or over flattening it. And when you're ready, you'll gently lower all the way back down. Go ahead and release that block. And then go ahead and walk the feet so they're outside of your hips. Let the knees knock in. You might choose to stay here and just wrap one arm around the body and the other arm around the body, like you're giving your spine a hug with your arms. You might choose to stay here and just breathe in constructive rest. You might find instead that you'd like to do some gentle supine twists. But you're really paying attention to what's happening for you in this moment. One of the things that I think happens is so often we create narratives about what things should be doing, how they should be feeling, how they should be in general, that we don't notice how they actually are. And it's that conflict between what is and our expectations of what should be that actually creates the congestion. It's what creates the tightness, the tension. And so if we can allow ourselves, moment by moment, breath by breath, to come back into contact with what is versus what we think ought to be, it allows things to soften and loosen, allows things to unfold in a way that allows more things to be possible. Okay, if you're still in constructive rest, go ahead and notice which arm is on top and switch which arm is on top. If you are doing those slow, gentle supine twists, if you haven't visited the other side, or if you were moving quite rapidly, do something different. So if you were doing rapid twists, maybe come back to constructive rest for a moment. If you're doing slow twists, go to the opposite side. And we'll just take 3 more breath cycles doing whatever we're doing, paying attention to what is present. And it's funny, I think a lot of times we worry about things being other than they are because we don't fully trust that as they are, in whatever moment we encounter them, we don't trust that that's perfectly okay, that's lovable, that's likable, that that's enough. And by giving ourselves permission moment by moment, breath by breath, shape by shape, to make contact with what is and try to find our best ability to love, embrace, accept, and value that thing as it is, the more it creates a ripple effect into other aspects of our life where we can accept not only others, but more importantly, we can accept ourselves, which is the foundation for accepting others. Okay. And if you're in constructive rest, you'll gently come out of that. If you're in movement, please come back to stillness. And then you're going to check in with your body and figure out any final shapes that you may or may not wish to be doing and make your way there. So Sukhi Randrasana on your back, supine figure 4 might feel really super nice to you. It might feel good to just go to a happy baby or a Supta Baddha Konasana as I'm making right now. You choose what shape feels best to you and allows you to relax, to let go, to yield to whatever is present, trusting that there's some gift embedded in that ness of that thing, that isness or presence, beingness that is that thing. And then very gently, you'll start to make your way to your final shape. So you might find yourself in Supta Baddha Konasana. You might find yourself back in constructive rest. You might even find yourself in Shavasana, but you'll pick one shape that feels like you can rest there for a few moments and just ease in a state of receptivity where you're not fighting, forcing anything to be other than it is. And as you settle into that shape, I invite you to return to your breath. Just observe how the breath is in this moment when you just allow things to be as they are, when you soften and yield to what is. What can open up, what can expand. Gently return your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just notice first where the breath feels the most alive and active for you. And then notice where the breath feels maybe a little less welcome, a little less active. And as best as you can, you'll just set the intention to allow the breath where it's active to gradually just naturally expand where it's a little bit more inactive. And it's not something you need to force, it's just simply the invitation. As the breath potentially becomes bigger, allow yourself to notice if you wish to stay here a bit longer, or if small movement is starting to call you. And you'll just do what feels most appropriate for you at this point in time. If you're in stillness, stay as long as you like. If you're in movement, you'll begin to make your way onto your right side into a soft semi-fetal position. And once you get to that side lying position, you'll just pause there for a few breaths. Gently, you'll start to roll your chest more towards the floor. Press into your top hand to release the bottom hand, and then draw yourself to a tall, comfortable seat. Once you're elevated, I encourage you to sit on a block or a blanket, anything that lets the spine be long and the breath be easy. And you'll just end here by taking one of your hands and placing it on the heart, and the other hand and placing it on the abdomen, and just taking a few moments to breathe in this shape. Through our practice, through our lives, we have the opportunity moment by moment, breath by breath, to begin to allow things to open, to yield, work together and in harmony. And what that requires is that sometimes we ask other things to step up, and we ask other things yet to step back. And so as you're here for these last few breath cycles, I encourage you to just invite in a gentle sense of awareness where you can create a sense of better harmony and balance in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, and your heart. Bring your hands to heart center on Anjali Mudra. Press your palms into each other. Receive the weight of your thumbs into your sternum and lift your heart towards your hands. Gently exhale all the breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you like. To that light, to that sound, to that balance, we bow. Namaste. Awesome. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Also, I'm curious to see how any of that soft tissue work worked for your hips, your legs, your back. And so please let me know about that. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you.